Okay, so before we start Module 4 today, we're going to quickly review a few things coming into the end of Modules 2 and 3. Now, a lot of you still aren't caught up all the way. That's fine. Just follow along with me, watch what I'm doing. The couple things that I'm going to show you here will help you maybe catch up and be ready for some of the My Personal Portfolio stuff at the end of Module 4, because it might not make as much sense if you haven't caught up that far yet. One thing I want to start with, though, that I noticed a lot of people were missing, because for this demonstration, I like to use different students' files for a lot of my demos, so I'm using one of my students' files from the other section for this demonstration, and I noticed in his steps folder, by the end of Module 3, you should have all these files, but he's missing one file that he should have made in Module 2. Okay, it's called commentout.html. This is just right here. We are in the comments section of Module 2 here. It's a really simple exercise in how a comment works. See these small little tiny codes here in the HTML? This one starts with an exclamation mark. This one doesn't have it. Okay, this is what's called a comment. So the whole point of this is to take the entire code. Okay, put it in a notepad file, paste it in there. This is a very simple one. If you don't have it, this is how you're making it. Go to Comments in Module 2, Save As, go to All Files like usual, call it, make sure you pay attention to which folder you're in, as always. Get in the main steps folder, call it commentout.html, and then you can close up the notepad file, and from that folder, there it is. Now you have that file in there. You can go open up with Explorer or whatever browser. I just happen to be using Explorer here. The point of this is, see here, there's a couple different items in the list, in the HTML list. If you go back here, you can see that there was actually 2 more items, but we didn't want to show those yet. And this is one use for a comment. An even better use for a comment is where you have like a large amount of HTML on a page, and you can say body section starts here, footer section starts here. You can use a comment inside of the actual content of the HTML so that you can say that to people who might be working on the page, but it won't appear in your content in the browser. That's what the comment does. It makes content invisible. So for this case, it was just something, maybe you were going to add it in later, so you'd already typed it in, so instead of getting rid of it, you just added a comment code around these 2 items in the list, and then when you preview it, even though this is the code we used, you don't see it. So this is one thing I wanted to quickly review that seemed like a lot of people missed when we were going through Module 2. Okay. Moving on, the other thing I wanted to make sure people understood was at the end of Module 2, you were to go into My Personal Portfolio, as always. The entire time, that's the way it's been. Okay, we've been all the time in each of the modules, all of these initial links and instructions and telling you do this, do that, do this, do that, up to MyPP, up to My Personal Portfolio, are always in steps. I don't know why people have table.html on the MyPP side. Nobody ever told you to do that. It's just a simple matter of paying attention to what you're doing, watching where you're saving things. So you want to make sure, as you watch me do this stuff today, that you also look at the files in my folder and that you have the same ones in the same places. If you don't, fix it. And if you move something and you broke the link, fix it. You guys know how to fix it. Okay, go to the file path and make sure it's exactly the same as where the file is. Okay, it's easy. Question?
Yeah, would you be able to go through how to link a CSS page to an HTML?
Yep, those are definitely. The 2 things I'm going to do before we start Module 4 now, just because of what I'm talking about here, are going to the personal portfolio section of each of the ends of Module 2 and 3 and making sure you guys were okay with doing your own hyperlinks at the end of Module 2 and then doing your own CSS links in Module 3. Because when we get here, you're starting to link things up and everything needs to be connected. You need to have a good handle on what's going on there. All right, so we got through all this stuff in Module 2. We got to the end of My Personal Portfolio. Even though we're already into week 4 and starting Module 4 here, there's still a lot of people that haven't done this. They got to the end, they did all the stuff in steps, which is good. And then it said put an image of yourself on index. Okay, all right. Create these other pages, and then you're linking them all back to index. And you're linking index to all 3 of these pages. Okay, so the way to do this is to just go to where we learned how to make relative links. Relative are within your site. So it's within the steps site. It's all within that folder. You just need a simple hyperlink like that. that has a direct file path and then some link text that says check out whatever. If you borrow this, you can just change the file path, change the link text. Okay, so I'm not going to do them all for you, but I'll do a couple here. Okay, so over here in the personal portfolio side, these are the 4 pages you should have by the end of module 2, sorry. And for the rest of the web workshop, these are the only 4 pages you should have in my personal portfolio. If you have a bunch of other crap in here, it shouldn't be in there. Probably should be over in steps. I don't know why people keep doing that. So these are the only things you should have in here. And you started with this one, which was just index. So let's open this up in Notepad. Okay. So this is Kevin's site, and he's got some information in here, and you can see he's got a couple lists of stuff he did. He didn't give me as much of a description of himself, but he gave me 2 lists, which I really didn't ask for. So that's I don't want you guys to give me nothing, okay? I should have a bit of content here on the index page. I did say, write a bit about yourself, tell me a bit about yourself, give me a list of your 5 favorite hobbies or movies or something, okay? And then I said add an image of yourself. So how did he pull this off? Okay, he's already done it. So right here, you see, he's got in a paragraph tag, which is good, so it'll have a line above and below. He's got an image link. Now, he went and put an image called cup.jpg in his images folder. He didn't link to it from pictures. No one in this classroom should have a big long file path with a C at the beginning for C drive and then a colon and a bunch of crap after. That means that you've simply gone over to where you had a picture on your computer, taken the file path and just put it in for your source, which is fine if this site is never going to leave your computer. However, we know that this site is going to be zipped up and taken away and put on somebody else's computer. I'll show you that at the end of the web workshop today, okay? So everything has to be contained within the same folder, starting all the way back in Module 1. In Module 2, you were to grab an image that you liked or wanted to use for something and put it into your images folder. So that's what Kevin did here. He went into his My Pictures, found a picture, copied it. You don't want to cut it because then you might just get rid of it for good. Copied it, went in here, pasted it in, and gave it a nice simple name. It might have had a bigger name or one of those stupid numbered names, you know, that you get when you take it right out of your camera. He just called it cup. And down here in the properties, when you're highlighting it in Windows or on a Mac, you can go down and look in the property tags, and you can see this is a JPEG. Now JPEG, unlike PNG and GIF, which the extensions you use in the file path are exactly what they are when you refer to the files, GIF and PNG. JPEG, some jerk had to go and say, well, it's a JPG file, but when we type it out to refer to it in like a sentence, we're going to call it JPEG, which is kind of annoying for you guys because when you're actually referring to the file type, the extension is only JPG. I saw a lot of people mess that up, and that was why their picture wasn't working. That was annoying. But job number 1, get the picture into the images folder. It's sitting there. Then my whole point, this entire web workshop is we're teaching you how to use these codes, and we're showing you this is a file path. That's all it is. So the source is taking you to a file path. So if we go back to images here, you can go borrow the image link, the exact one, and that's what Kevin probably did. Copy it, go into your code. Okay, he probably just took it, pasted it right in there, and then all he had to change was this. He didn't even have to change images because you have an images folder in both MyPP and in steps. So all he had to fix was cup. So the name of the file is cup, and the extension is JPG. A lot of people got that far and then put the E in there and it wasn't working. Sorry about that, but it's just JPG. And then all we gave you for this particular image link, because we gave you a nice small image, was just alternative keywords, which you should be able to put in there. See how he changed his? I want to see that because this is good optimization. You're going to get bad ratings in Google Analytics, or maybe not ratings. Your traffic is not going to stick around or land on the page as much as it should because you don't have as many keywords built into your content as you should because you've put all these graphics and photographs in there without putting any alternative keywords in there like welcome to our site, we do this, this, and this, the best place for this, that kind of thing, right? So he just put hugging the Holy Grail of hockey. So it's a picture of him with a Stanley Cup, okay? Or somebody. So you could change that for me too, all right? But all you had to really do was borrow the link and change the file. And then the link would work on that page if you actually put the file into images. Okay, if you named your folder with a capital I, see how that's a small I? That's why it's not working. There's very simple, typical typo reasons why some of these things aren't working. And that's why I wanted to review this before we started Module 4. You can't go into Module 4 still dealing with this kind of stuff. You want to be comfortable with this, okay? So the one last thing that I'd advise you to do, and I would appreciate very much if you did, if you're taking a picture out of a camera, 90% of the time you haven't gone in and downsized it or edited it. So you can see in Kevin's folder here, when we go to images, okay? Where were we? Images. When I sit on that, this is 2,500 plus pixels by almost 2,000. That's very large, okay? And when we get into Dreamweaver, we're going to learn how, prior to putting photos on our site, so we don't actually have to load up this size file, we use Photoshop to optimize them, downsize them, maybe throw some, effects on the photo, put some text in there, stuff like that. We're not going to load photos this big into our site. But for right now, I'm not expecting you to use a photo editing program. I would just like to not see it load on the page that large, okay? I'd like to see it smaller. So what you can do is use those other codes I taught you that were very simple, width and height, okay? And after you put equals, and whatever you want the value to be, you put in quotes. And then, very easily, you just made your picture load up more in a size range that is suitable for the page, like 300 by 400 or 500 by 500 if it's a square, something like that. Okay, so you could see he actually did this. You can also use percent signs to load up a certain percentage size of the photo, like only show me 25% of the width and 30% of the height, something like that, okay? And that will make the photo look smaller. So where you see, so I'm going to pull mine right out because he's already done this. And we'll load the page. So where you see that photo load up, in images, if I double click it, like it'll load up in my Windows view. Like it's a pretty big photo, and that's probably not even at 100%, right? If I load it up in the page, in his MyPP site, okay, you'll see that this photo loads up only that big. So that's another, so yes, I expect you to know how to like adapt the things you've learned and make your own image show up here. That's not that big of a deal, guys. And that's the same way you were supposed to link all 4 of these pages together. So when I asked you in my personal portfolio, sorry, we're not dealing with Firefox right now. When I asked you in my personal portfolio to go and create 4 new pages, put some, like create contact. Put in some contact information. Make a page with some education background. Tell us where you went to school and what you've done. Create an employment history page, something like that. And in contact information, I think I actually asked you to use a table. Create a table, right? Yeah, so on your table page from steps, you could have just copied the code, right? This is not hard stuff. Like we've given you all these codes. But the one thing people seem to just not do, they made all these pages, but they didn't link them together. I'm like, guys, what? Well, we didn't know how. It's just a relative link. You're just linking from one page to another within the same site folder. So go, steal the link right here within that same workshop, okay? Go into your pages that you've created. All right, so let's start with index. In index, we wanted you to create links to each of the 3 pages you made. Okay, so down here, you can see, okay, and he's still got to do one more. I don't know why he's missing employment. You could just literally just copy it, paste it in, change the file path to employment, okay, and then say, see my employment history. It's really simple. You could just say whatever phrase you want. I'm not going to nitpick this apart. Like I'm going to be looking for quality content when you make your final websites, but this is just to practice these things. So that's all I did was borrow it, and this time, unlike before when I had to change the file path and then also add some alternative keywords, possibly change the size, all I had to change was the file path. I borrowed the relative link, and the link text, yeah, so it's not just, and you change the link text. All right, so there, on my index page, I just borrowed that exact thing, made 3 hyperlinks. No big deal, you just change the file path, guys, that's all we're doing. So then on each of those pages, you make a very similar hyperlink, but it goes back to index.html, and you can say, go back home, go to my home page, home, whatever you want to say, as your link text. Except, and you can just copy that one onto all the pages, except for one of those pages, I actually asked you to do something slightly bit trickier. which was on the contact page. For the contact page, I said, hey, instead of actually making just a normal hyperlink with words in it, I want you to actually make a hyperlink where the link text that we usually have is a picture instead. So that's what you see here, okay? So usually, and so this is the link back to home page from Kevin's contact page. This is the contact page. This is also in the personal portfolio end of module 2. Usually you would see something like this. You would see the ahref, you would close a chevron, you would say your link text back to home page, and then you would close the hyperlink. Now, this is how simple this actually is. If you know that all that goes here is what appears, so that you know you can click on something to go and use the hyperlink, and you know how to make an image appear on the page, just take what you know to be a proper image link, like to make an image appear, and put it in the place of the link text. So you just go like that, okay? Go back, see my profile page, whatever. Okay, and he used a little Mario graphic, all right? And then instead of text saying go back to my home page on that page, he has the little Mario graphic, and when you click on it, it goes back to index. So I had people screwing around with that one for like an hour. There's nothing, I'm not trying to mess with you guys, okay? It's just literally the same exact thing, except instead of the words in there, see, he did the words too. He did both links. You don't have to do that. But instead of the words right there, he put the picture link instead. And then that's still a hyperlink. It's just a picture. You guys get that, right? Okay, then the end of module 3, after you learned how to link files, so now at this point, end of module 2, you should have these 4 pages here, and you should have, if you're at the end of module 2, everything here except that CSS file. Okay, then in module 3, you added this CSS file and also added some CSS to index as well. You were connecting to this styles file that you made. Okay, so you learned in module 3 to put formatting not just internally in the HTML, not just embedded in the head, which you did learn both of those, but also in an external sheet, and then to get the formatting to come up on any of these pages, and I think you only put it on index with the external sheet, you put an href link. It looks kind of like a hyperlink, but it's not. It's a CSS link in which head, damn it, I just gave it away, in which HTML tag in your HTML document, in the head, okay? So in his index here, we gave you the exact code, okay? So what Kevin's done is make this page go that pale yellow, green text, heading 2 is blue. Those are the 3 main CSS codes that were in there. And the reason this works, even though it's in this separate file in this folder, is because if we pull this up in Notepad, okay, so open with, make sure you're highlighting the file, open with Notepad, you can see at the very top here, okay, the head starts, you got the title in the head, which is fine. Then before the head closes and the body begins, he's got this little link here. So if we give you this link to go into the step styles folder, see, so styles.css should not be floating around with all the HTML files. It's meant to go in the folder that stores those files, which is step styles. Sometimes it'll be CSS, sometimes it'll be scripts. It depends on what the web designers called it. And most of the time, you put those files in there so they don't lose track of them. So we go into that folder, / we find this file. If you know this link worked on this side, just copy it, take it to the other side, and link to MyPP styles and the CSS file you made in my personal portfolio. So that's all you had to do for the end. So I'm not going to save changes on this file there. I'm just going to close that. Okay, so at the end of this, for the personal portfolio for this section, you were asked to, you went through and learned about a CSS and all this different stuff, and then you said, okay, now make a style sheet on the other side. But it's really, really close to the style sheet we already asked you to make. So you can pretty much just steal the code and change a couple things. Or you can copy the file and rename it. Whatever you want to do. I think that's probably even easier. So an easier way to get the My Personal Portfolio started, and this is what I think a lot of people still haven't done yet, is you just go in here. Let's pretend there was nothing in here yet. Delete this. Okay, so that's empty right now. We haven't done any styles at the end of Module 3 yet on our Personal Portfolio site. We're going to go in here. We're going to copy the style sheet, not cut it, just copy it, that we made in steps. Go over here to My Personal Portfolio, go into the style folder there, and paste it in. Then we're going to click on it, or right-click and rename, or just hold your mouse click down to rename. and call this MyPP instead of styles. Now it's already been saved, like we learned last week. Just like you did with all the HTML files, you open it up in Notepad, you put the CSS text in, and then you save as all files .css, not .html. It's already been done. So you don't have to go mypp.css. It's done. You just change the name, hit enter, you're good. Now when we get to Dreamweaver, I know this is a lot of, Mike, what the hell are we really doing here? We're just copying files back and forth. Yes, we are. Okay, there is a lot of that. And it's meant to make your brains go back to that grade 5, grade 6 mentality where you were taught how to manage files on a computer. Oh, the majority of this entire assignment is copying and pasting. And then as like an ancillary thing, like learning, oh yeah, we're making HTML also. So that was the easiest way to make that MyPP style sheet for your personal portfolio. Then what were you to do? Well, you were to change a couple things in it, okay? So in the style sheet, you can go and open with Notepad. FYI, if it opens with Dreamweaver, that's also fine, okay? You should all have Dreamweaver in your computers by the end of this week. Absolutely at the latest by the beginning of next week. Dreamweaver is an editing program for CSS. You can edit it in there too, just like Notepad. I'm going to open it in Notepad because it's faster. You can see here I have a body CSS code. I have an H2 and I have a paragraph code for CSS. This is what I stole from the other side. All I asked you to do is, hey, give me another background color. Give me a different CSS for heading 1 instead of heading 2. And then give me a paragraph. Define the font size. So within here, you can see I haven't defined the size yet. Okay, I just have a paragraph color, and you can leave it set as green. But to define the font size, okay, your CSS code is pretty much just size. Okay, and then you add in the pixels. So if I was to go into Dreamweaver and show you this, you know, in a working site, you'd see what I'm talking about. So I'll open that up. But for the body, it's already fully created. You can just change this color. So let's go FFCC33, something a bit different. Text color without a paragraph tag, black is fine. I asked you for a heading 1 code. This is heading 2. Just change the 2 to a 1. Maybe change it to red instead of blue. You don't always have to use color codes. You can use one of those standard 6 to 8 color names that HTML recognizes. There's not a lot of them, but red is one of them. Okay. And then for paragraph, I take what I already have and just add a sizing code to that same. So I'm going to need to use a colon and a semicolon within that same squiggly bracket. So if I take a look at, let's go to an even more basic site, like, I don't know, any of these would work. Here, this one's good. This will have a CSS sheet, which, I didn't put in a folder. That's not good. Let's open this up and take a look at the code, okay? So here, tabs, we got tabs. Where's our main body code? I don't know, hang on. That's a different, that's not what I wanted to show you at all. This one here, this is good. And I have the CSS file in a folder called style. So there's my body tag. There's some stuff, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so my fonts are often built into the body. They're not always in a specific font tag like paragraph. So you can see here, that's how font size comes in. Now, I don't think we actually have that in our body tag. Okay, we don't. So we wouldn't know what it actually looks like. So it is that simple. And when you don't know this, what's the best place to go and find the CSS code for font size? W3 Schools, right? And they would have given you this exact thing. So let's define the size this time and add that little thing in there. So yeah, it was a bit of work, but that's all we had to do, okay? And we're going to make it 14 just to change it up a bit. So we had to change the body a little bit, give a different background color, make heading 1 something instead of heading 2, and then change the paragraph by giving it a size. So then I save that, and I've got this new CSS sheet over in my personal portfolio for module 3. And then it just says, link it to all your files. So you've got 4 files in there. Piece of cake. Go back to where we learned external style. Steal the link I gave you, which is right here. Okay? Now we've got 2 indexes open, so let's make sure we have the right one. This is exactly what I keep telling you guys not to do. Okay, good. This is the index for my personal portfolio. So see, he's already done it, right? So see how that's different? Watch what I paste in. So this is the link I just stole from our instructions. Because I don't give you one in prime. That doesn't mean I'm not giving you the answer still. I'm just not giving it to you in that section. So you can just borrow the link from steps and just fix the folder name and the file name. So this is mindless, guys. You literally, all you have to fix is the file path. Tyler.
I've done that now.
Okay, so you put in MyPP styles, and your folder is definitely named MyPP styles. There's not two S's in it or a capital letter or anything. There's not a space in there. And you put /, and your file inside of that folder, not just in your main web folder, is definitely mypp.css. And nothing's changing? Okay, I'll take a look at that in a second. Assuming you've done this and you don't have any typos in your file names or folder names, that should work. And you can refresh it in the browser, see that it works, copy or cut that link out of there, and go and put it in the head of each of the 4 documents you have. And then you've added CSS just like you did in this step here to index. Or this might have been, I think it was index. Yeah, index. You've added CSS to all 4 files on My Personal Portfolio. Okay, and then, bam, we're ready to start Module 4. All right, so I'm going to stop.